my name is T and you're watching Let's Take a Look. In this video, we're going to be discussing adding and subtracting fractions with a like or unlike denominator. So let's get started. But before we talk about adding and subtracting fractions, we talked about multiplying fractions before. Multiplying fractions is a little easier than adding and subtracting fractions. That's why we talked about it before. If you look at any math book, you might find adding and subtracting fractions before multiplying fractions. But since I find it personally a little easier, I took that one before. Let's get started with adding and subtracting fractions. A lot of you who might have seen our multiplying fractions video would have remembered the procedure. And you might be wondering, can't we do the same procedure with adding and subtracting fractions? Well, let's give it a try. But I've got a bad feeling about this. 1/2 plus 1/2. 1/2 is a fraction we see a lot. And if we were to add 1/2 plus 1/2, a lot of you know the answer. But let's give it a try. If we were to do the same procedure as multiplying fractions, we would add our 1 plus 1 and 2 plus 2. Multiplying fractions would have meant we would multiply the numbers, but since we're adding, it would come off as addition, right? Well, 1 plus 1 would give us 2, and 2 plus 2 would give us 4. That gives us 2 over 4. And we know 2 over 4 is the same as 1/2. So meaning here, we really didn't get the answer. 2 over 4 is equal to 1/2. Well, there is a trick to doing this equation. If we have 1/2 plus 1/2, we know that our denominators are the same. Both our denominators here are 2. That's called a like fractions. And looking at our order of operations, it says that division and multiplication goes before addition and subtraction. And that comes over here because a fraction is basically a division sign. When we look at algebra, we write 1/2 we write division as a fraction line, meaning that fractions are basically division. That means we would have to do the division part first, but that could get really complicated. So there's a little trick we could use to do the addition part before the division part. So what is the trick? The trick is, if you've got a common denominator, like we have 2 and 2 over here, then you could add the top numbers together and you could leave the bottom numbers. Let me show you how. Basically, if we were to leave both the bottom numbers and make sure that that was the same number we used for our answer, we could put just 1, 2 over here and make this into one line. Meaning 1 plus 1 over 2 would be how we would do it. 1 plus 1 we know is 2. And our 2 carry forwards here, and that means 2 over 2 is our answer. And we know that 2 over 2 is a whole. 1/2 plus 1/2 is equal to a whole. Pretty simple. Let's do another example. We have 9 over 23 plus 5 over 23. Now we know that we can't add the 23's together. So we could just make one line to make the 23's together. Here, our 23 goes in the middle and we would add. This shows us that 9 plus 5 is the answer that we would get as our top number, and our 23 is already the bottom number. 9 plus 5 gives us 14. So we can just take this out from over here and substitute the 14 in. That means 14 over 23 is our answer. If we have 16 over 87 plus 57 over 87. Now these numbers are pretty big, so we might have to do the addition in separate. 16 plus 57 gives us 73. 6 plus 7 is 13, and this would carry to 2, and 2 plus 5 is 73. So meaning our top would be 73 over 87. We were just talking about adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. Now let's talk about adding and subtracting fractions with an unlike denominator. Now, adding and subtracting a fraction with an unlike denominator can get a little harder, since if we want to use our trick, we have to have a common denominator. That means we're going to have to change the fraction to have a common denominator. For example, if we have the fraction 4 over 6 plus 2 over 5. Both our fractions over here have a different denominator. So how would we add those? Well, we're going to have to look at both of these denominators and find a common number that goes with both of them. Normally, we would have to look at the 5's timetable and the 6's timetable. See what number comes between both. You would normally use the easiest number that comes. But another way you could do this is to multiply the both numbers. If we multiply 6 by 5 and 5 by 6, we're going to get the same answer. That means both the numbers come in each of their timetables. That's just an easy way to find out. If we do 6 times 5, we get 30. So we would just write times 5 on the top in the littlest handwriting you can do. This times 5 doesn't really matter, but it helps you look at your past steps and look at if you've made a mistake or not. We know that 6 times 5 is 30. And whatever we do to the top number, we do to the bottom number. And what we do to the bottom number, we do to the top number. So 4 times 5 would come as 20. So 20 over 30 is the same as 4 over 6. Now, if we would times 5 by 6 and 2 by 6. 5 times 6 we know will give us 30. That solves our common denominator. And 2 times 6 is 12. So now, as we did with like fractions, we can just take away our 30 and put in 20 plus 12 instead. So 20 plus 12 is 32. So meaning we'll get 32 over 30. Now this is an uncommon fraction. Our top number is bigger than our bottom number. That means that this fraction plus this fraction gives us 1 whole and 2 over 30. Okay, moving on to the second example. Our second example is 3 over 9 plus 5 over 8. We're going to have to do the same step where we find a common denominator between both. And an easy way to do that is to multiply both the numbers just to find a number that comes in both timetables. 9 times 8. 9 times 8 gives us 72. So meaning both our denominators will be 72. This one times 8, and this one times 9. 3 times 8 gives us 24. So we can put that one in. And 5 times 9 gives us 45. So here we have 45 over 72 plus 24 over 72. We're going to have to do the addition of 24 plus 45, and our denominator would stay at 72. So we have 24 plus 45. 4 plus 5 gives us 9, and 2 plus 4 gives us 6, meaning we get 69 as our answer. And 72 is our denominator. This can take a lot of steps sometimes. Now, let's do one with a larger denominator. Our next example will be 7 over 8 plus 3 over 12. Now, as we've discussed, we would multiply the 8 and 12 together. 8 times 12 can give us 96. So both our denominators will be 96. We would have to do this times 12 and this times 8 to get our further answers. 7 times 12 gives us 84. And 3 times 8 gives us 24. So all we do is add the 84 plus 24 and our 96 would remain the same. And as we can see with this question, if we add 84 plus 24, we're going to get an improper fraction. 4 plus 4 gives us 8, and 8 plus 2 gives us we've got our answer as 108. If we put in 108, we can see that this fraction will be an improper fraction. And that topic will be for another video. Well, thank you for watching. Let's take a look, and I'll see you next time. But remember to like, share, and subscribe.